Am I the asshole for cheating on my wife and feeling good about it? First of all, I don't plan on leaving my wife, and I have no plans on telling her about my affair. I, Robert, 31M, married to my wife Katrina, 29F, for 7 years. We met in college through her best friend, Amelia, and have been together ever since. Sure, we've had a few breakups along the way, but we always found our way back to each other. 4 years into our marriage though, things changed. Katrina stopped wanting intimacy, and it threw me off. At first I thought maybe I was the problem. I put on a bit of weight, wasn't in great shape and figured maybe I just wasn't attractive to her anymore. Or maybe it was the stress from her job, which she loves but often finds overwhelming. Determined to fix things, I committed to changing myself. I started going to the gym, eating better, and even tried learning new ways to make her happy in bed. After 6 months of hard work, I was finally in great shape again. Katrina noticed, complimented me, and seemed proud of how I looked. I was sure this was the moment things would go back to normal. I planned a romantic night to celebrate, went all out with a home-cooked meal, wine and candles, even drew her a relaxing bath. Katrina was loving it. She thanked me, kissed me, and I thought I'd finally cracked the code. But when we got to the bedroom, she told me she wasn't in the mood. I was crushed. But I didn't press the issue. Katrina assured me it wasn't about me, that she still loved me and wanted to be together forever, even if things were different. Her words hit hard, but I tried to respect her feelings. I kept setting up romantic evenings, trying to spark something, but each time it ended the same. Desperate for advice, I reached out to Amelia. She and Katrina were best friends, so if anyone knew what was going on, it was her. Amelia said she hadn't noticed anything strange and suggested therapy. I thought it was a good idea, though Katrina was hesitant at first. She didn't want people in our business, but after I explained how important it was to me, she reluctantly agreed. After a few therapy sessions, I learned the truth. Katrina just wasn't attracted to me anymore. She couldn't explain why but insisted she wanted to stay together. That revelation hit me like a train. Was it me? Had I done something wrong? But I knew Katrina wasn't the type to cheat, and before me, she'd only had one other partner. So we settled into a routine, more like roommates than spouses. So, after therapy and all those conversations, Katrina and I settled into this weird, distant routine. We shared a home, but that was about it. We went through the motions, cooking dinner together, watching TV and occasionally going out with friends, but there was nothing intimate left between us. I was frustrated, miserable, and honestly at a complete loss. Here I was, watching my wife every day, knowing I could never touch her the way I wanted. I thought about our life, our marriage, all the sacrifices I'd made for this relationship. I still loved Katrina, but the lack of connection was driving me crazy. It felt like I was living with a stranger. The only person I could turn to was Amelia. She and I started texting more often. At first it was harmless, mostly me venting about how difficult things were and Amelia being a supportive friend. One evening, Amelia suggested we meet up for coffee to talk. We met at a nearby cafe and as soon as we sat down, she got straight to the point. She said she wanted to help me with my situation, offering a solution that left me completely shocked. She proposed that we could have an arrangement, just the two of us, that would help me relieve some of my pent-up frustration. I was floored. Amelia, the responsible one in our friend group, was the last person I would have expected to suggest something like this. She'd always been so serious, so careful about everything. I wasn't sure if she was serious or if this was some kind of strange joke, but she looked right at me, no hesitation in her eyes. At first, I didn't know what to say. I mean, this was my wife's best friend. Amelia had been there since day one, supporting Katrina and me as a couple. But as I thought about it more, I realized how tempting the offer was. For months I'd felt stuck, hopeless and starved for any kind of affection. Here was someone who actually wanted to be close to me. Someone who understood what I was going through. After a lot of back and forth in my mind, I finally agreed. She handed me a hotel key and told me to meet her there in an hour. As I stood outside the hotel room door, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. What if Katrina found out? How would I even begin to explain myself? But as soon as Amelia opened the door, all those thoughts faded. She was standing there in black lingerie, and in that moment I knew I couldn't turn back. It had been so long since I'd felt wanted and I wasn't about to deny myself this chance. That night was incredible. It was amazing we did it for hours, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't questioning myself or feeling rejected. Amelia seemed just as pleased, and we agreed to keep everything strictly between us. From that day on, whenever I had the chance, I went to see her. We'd meet at that hotel, go on private dates, and text whenever Katrina wasn't around. For the first time in ages, I felt happy and free. Katrina noticed my mood was better and even got suspicious at one point, but I reassured her, telling her I was just grateful to be spending time with her. Strangely enough, I didn't feel any guilt. When I looked at Katrina, I still loved her, but I didn't regret a single moment with Amelia. Now here I am, asking for advice. I know people are going to judge me for this, but this arrangement has made me feel alive again. Am I the asshole? Update. After that weekend with Amelia, things started to get complicated. Spending a couple of days with her, just the two of us, made me feel things I hadn't expected. It wasn't just about the excitement or the intimacy anymore. Amelia and I actually enjoyed each other's company. We talked about things I'd never opened up about. Even to Katrina. It felt like Amelia saw a side of me that I hadn't shown in years. When Katrina returned from her work trip, I went back to the routine of hiding everything, but it was different now. I found myself looking forward to Amelia's texts more than I should have. We started messaging each other about everything. Small talk, random thoughts, inside jokes. She became the person I'd turn to when I had a bad day or just wanted to share something funny. At home, Katrina was starting to pick up on the shift in my behavior. She mentioned a few times that I seemed happier, almost too happy given the state of our marriage. I could sense her trying to connect with me, asking questions, trying to get me to open up. But I wasn't interested. I was living two lives at this point, and the one with Amelia felt more fulfilling. I wasn't ready to let it go. One night, Katrina confronted me directly. She asked if I was seeing someone else. I managed to play it off, laughed, and told her she was being ridiculous. I told her I'd just been working on myself, trying to find ways to cope with the tension in our relationship. She seemed satisfied with my answer, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. After that, I realized I needed to be more careful. I started being extra cautious with my phone, deleting messages, not texting Amelia around Katrina. But despite my efforts, I could tell Katrina's suspicion was growing. She'd been distant before, but now it felt like she was watching me, looking for signs, piecing things together in her mind. Around this time, Amelia and I had a serious talk about what we were doing. She admitted she was starting to have real feelings for me, and honestly, I couldn't deny that I was feeling the same. I hadn't planned on developing any kind of emotional connection, but it was too late for that now. She wasn't just my wife's best friend anymore. She was someone I was genuinely falling for. We both knew this was a dangerous path, but neither of us wanted to stop. Things came to a head one evening when Katrina decided to surprise me with a date night. She cooked dinner, poured some wine, and told me she wanted us to reconnect. She even said she was open to discussing ways we could work on our intimacy issues. And while I should have felt happy or even relieved, I felt nothing. I went through the motions, but my mind kept drifting back to Amelia. The guilt started to hit me in waves. Not because I felt bad about what I was doing with Amelia, but because I was lying to Katrina in such an obvious way. Here she was, trying to fix things, putting in real effort, and I couldn't even bring myself to be honest with her. I realized that I was in way over my head. I was risking my marriage, my friendship with Amelia, and even my peace of mind. The next day, I met up with Amelia and told her about the date night with Katrina. She looked at me, concerned, and asked if I was going to end things with her. I told her honestly that I didn't know. Part of me wanted to keep going with Amelia, but another part was starting to question if any of this was worth it. I was juggling secrets, constantly looking over my shoulder and getting closer and closer to a point of no return. Amelia suggested we take a break, that maybe I should focus on figuring out what I really wanted. But the thought of letting her go felt impossible. I realized I'd come to rely on her more than I thought. She'd become my escape, my support system, and letting her go felt like losing a lifeline. So here I am, stuck in the middle of a mess I created. I don't want to hurt either of them, but I know I'm hurting both in my own way. After a few months, the routine with Amelia became almost natural. We developed this rhythm that felt right. Amelia and I would meet whenever Katrina was busy or out with friends. In the beginning, I worried constantly about Katrina finding out, but the longer it went on, the more comfortable I got. And surprisingly, so did Amelia. She seemed to enjoy our time together just as much as I did, and we kept things discreet. But things got a little complicated when Katrina noticed some changes in me. I was lighter, more cheerful, and, let's be honest, probably a little too happy, given the tension we'd been living with. She asked me about it a few times, subtly, like, "You seem different lately. What's been going on?" I brushed it off, told her I was just trying to focus on the positives in life. She seemed to accept that explanation, but I could tell there was a lingering doubt in her mind. I made sure to be extra careful after that, deleted messages, kept our meeting times irregular, avoided any slip-ups. Amelia and I had conversations about where this whole thing was going. She asked if I thought Katrina and I would ever find our way back to a normal marriage. I didn't have an answer. Part of me felt hopeful, but another part had honestly given up on that idea. I told her that I wasn't planning to leave Katrina, and Amelia said she wasn't asking me to. She just wanted to be there for me. She wanted me to be happy, even if it was only in small, secret moments. One weekend, Katrina announced she was going on a work trip. I'd barely had a moment to process this news before my mind jumped to the idea of having Amelia over for the whole weekend. We hadn't spent more than a few hours together at a time, so the thought of a weekend was thrilling. Amelia agreed, and we made plans. Those 2 days were like nothing I'd experienced in years. We stayed in, cooked together, watched movies, and just connected. It was a side of Amelia I hadn't fully seen. She wasn't just Katrina's best friend anymore. She was someone I truly cared about. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd crossed into emotional territory I hadn't planned on. After that weekend, something shifted. Amelia began texting me more, asking about my day, checking in on me. Our messages weren't just about sneaking away to the hotel anymore. They were about life, feelings, and things I didn't even talk to Katrina about. I realized I was starting to rely on Amelia in ways that made me feel uneasy. One night, Katrina noticed I was on my phone more than usual. She asked if I was talking to someone. I froze but quickly played it off, saying I was texting an old friend from college. She seemed to buy it, but I could feel her suspicion growing. Things between us had been distant for so long that I couldn't remember the last time she'd been this curious about my life. I knew I was pushing my luck. I'd started something with Amelia that I couldn't easily walk away from, but I also knew it was only a matter of time before Katrina put the pieces together. I had everything to lose, my marriage, my stability, and even my friendship with Amelia if things went south. The guilt started creeping in. Not because of what I was doing with Amelia, but because of how reckless I was getting. I was playing a dangerous game, and part of me enjoyed the thrill of it. I was torn. On one hand, I wanted to keep things going with Amelia, maybe even deepen our connection. On the other, I didn't want to risk everything I'd built with Katrina, even if our marriage wasn't perfect anymore. So here I am again, asking for advice. Update. After my night with Amelia, I had no idea how much things would change. Almost as if she sensed the distance between us, Katrina made a surprising shift. She started showing more interest in me, initiating conversations, planning small dates, even being affectionate in ways she hadn't in years. I was confused, but she told me she wanted to reconnect, that she didn't want to lose me. I think she must have realized that I was drifting, and instead of pushing me away she pulled me closer. One evening, Katrina asked if we could spend the night together. And it wasn't just a suggestion. There was this raw honesty in her eyes, something I hadn't seen since our early years together. She was asking for a fresh start, telling me without words that she still wanted us to work. She didn't pry or question where I'd been or if there was someone else. She just showed that she still loved me, that she wanted me. That night, we were truly together for the first time in what felt like forever. And surprisingly, I didn't feel torn. I felt good in a way I hadn't expected. Being close to Katrina, reconnecting like this, was a reminder of everything we had built together. Everything we'd shared over the years. I started to realize that maybe I'd lost sight of what mattered. After that night, things started feeling lighter. The tension that had been weighing on me, the constant secrecy, the guilt, it all started to fade. I didn't feel the same pull toward Amelia. In fact, I felt a strange relief. I no longer had the urge to keep secrets or look for something outside my marriage. Katrina's effort made me see her in a new light, and being with her reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. Amelia, meanwhile, seemed to understand. She stopped reaching out as much, and when we did talk, it felt more like friends than anything else. She didn't say it directly, but I think she sensed that I was recommitting to my marriage. And honestly, I felt a weight lift. I hadn't expected to feel so at peace, so free of the constant back and forth that had consumed me. So here I am, finding myself truly content with my wife again. Katrina and I are working to rebuild what we almost lost, and I feel grateful for this second chance. I didn't think I'd feel good about ending things with Amelia, but now, I'm happy to have chosen my wife. Maybe I needed to go through all of this to realize what I truly wanted. Am I the asshole for everything that happened? Probably. But I don't care, I got my wife back.